support and rehabilitation for about 15 years. So we tonight wanted to bring one portion of the concussion and self-care unit on advocacy, because this seems to be the number one thing that comes forward with my clients when I get to see them as a anxiety that has come from not being heard, not feeling as though people are responding to their needs, and not really understanding what they're going through. So I'm hoping that by working through the goals of advocacy, we can move from places in which people are extremely frustrated into places where you can celebrate and just feel heard, and that you've accomplished what you need to recover to the best you can. A lot of the time I find that the individuals that I'm working with struggle to feel confident that they are able to ask for what they want. And they lack confidence in that. And a lot of that can be based on some of the stuff that has gone on in their life since the accident occurred. Stemming from core beliefs on how the world should be. And there could be pieces of your personality that initial trauma of a motor vehicle accident or stroke or whatever head injury has occurred, whatever injuries happen to the brain that can upset you emotionally, and in general, your thoughts and behaviors can get preoccupied by some of those pieces that are going on. Our human can really be unsettling. So I think the first thing I wanted to cover, you maybe have different abilities in terms of how you function. Have like all kinds of things going around. What is happening to you is valid because it's happening from your experiences. Or category, because I see that there is in and out, or are you able to hear me clearly? I'm not getting any message that I'm losing Wi-Fi. It's not going to be a really enjoyable. We'll see if there is something I can do from this. Back. Okay, guys, you'll have to let me know if that's still a problem. I am reading that there's like consistent Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure what the issue is. Anyway, back to knowing your worth. So have that level of objectivity and you can remain determined. Within your family and social relations, the expert of your experience. And so it listen to what they're telling you about what if you're fatigued and tired within a group situation, understand that it is not or a lack of processing and communication challenges. Communicate paired that you can share or ones that you can keep coping techniques for yourself within a group. Maybe it means take 5 to and I really don't know how to want to pause and take 5 and restart. This time or be frustrating to them. And stop and restart the video, but I'm going to stop and restart a different Wi-Fi unit in our home. So let me know where. Okay, so we should have no more interruptions. Working in this field for about 15 years, and I'm here the advocacy piece of concussion and self-care throughout concussion and rehab. My hope is that through the discussing goals of advocacy, it's to get from that place of frustration and not feeling unheard to a place of achieving what you need and being heard. part of what I feel holds us back at times from being heard is a loss of confidence post-injury. We don't necessarily understand from our life experiences that are happening around us, that, you know, we're made to believe we're not really the experts of our experience. And sometimes the core beliefs get rattled a bit, that, you know, we're not worthy of being heard because we don't understand the situation and these experts know better, but you really are the expert of your situation. There are changes in your personality that may disrupt your ability to remain calm while you are trying to express what you need. There is a lot of emotion packed in it. There's a lot of anxiety. Am I going to get back to what I used to do? Am I going to return to my job? Are things going to get better for me? And then that leads to a lot of upsetting thoughts and behaviors that may come from that. It's not uncommon that I hear people discussing how they become very frustrated and very upset, and they're yelling more. And so, you know, you try to have that conversation with Bell Canada with someone on a good day, and I'm lucky not to yell. I can understand, like, you're already feeling frustrated and upset. To try and manage those day-to-day pieces are even more frustrating and upsetting. So walking into this, know your worth. Remember that you are a valuable person. You are the expert, regardless of whether you're sitting in front of a medical doctor, because not all medical doctors truly understand what's happening after a brain injury or after a stroke, or they're not understanding what you're dealing with in your day-to-day life, because the brain is so complex and not everybody it's not mapped perfectly. You know, this happens and then this happens after an injury. Everyone's experience is their own. So maintain objective when you're there and interacting with people, and remain determined. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to have what you need for you to feel better. Within family and social relationships, I've found a lot of success in taking that role as expert in educating individuals, so that you can be heard and you can break down misperceptions between one another. I'm just checking our chat messages again to make sure that we are, yes, everyone's mentioning it's much better. So I'm going to continue on. Great. When you educate your family and when you educate your friends that, you know, the reason I'm not necessarily attentive to what's happening in this situation, it's not my disinterest in you, it's not my unwillingness to listen to what you're hearing, it's I have fatigue. It's harder for me to maintain that social connection because I'm not always processing things as quickly. But give yourself the opportunity to take breaks within your outings so that you have time to rest and recoup. Structure your evening so that maybe you don't go as long, but it's still important to go and maintain those connections for even a short time. Have communication scripts that can help you, or pass along an email breaking down that communication issue before you ever arrive. Yeah, don't forget your coping techniques. Remember to, you know, keep it short, or take those breaks, or find areas of the home that are quieter, and then you can make that evening more enjoyable for you. Try to find shared activities that fit your lifestyle. If you can't go to that social gathering where they are, maybe invite one or two people from that social gathering for a tea at your house. Just change the construct of that social engagement a little bit. There may be new activities you have to find with your individual family members. I just had something as simple as a knee injury, and most of my connection came from physical exercise with my children. And now we've really had to change that up because I don't go skiing and I don't play tennis and I don't run with them. And we're not the track stars of our hometown anymore. Now I play games and I'm going to learn how to play chess and those, it's, board games. It's not the same, but it is, we found some new ways to connect. And always remember your limits, get to know your limits. Often we forget and we overexert ourselves because we really want to enjoy that moment, but then it kind of blows our energy for the next couple of days. And then people then start to, wonder what is about this Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, behaviors that come back and forth. So I think, knowing all of these pieces, trying to pace it out, keep it in place. And I know that these have been covered in other areas of this training, and they'll go into some of them in more depth and how to preserve your energy. And it will be helpful to you. But learning those limits and paying attention to that as you go along. When you have to go into dealing with telephone and email requests, that can be one of the most challenging things. I know, like I had said with Bell Canada. So it's just so trying to actually, and frustrating to deal with them. And when you're tired and you can't necessarily hear them and things are moving too fast. So I think it's really important from the beginning of any telephone conversation that you have with someone to identify, I may have trouble understanding you. I would like you to speak loudly and clearly, and, list the very specific points of this conversation and what you need to get out of it. I have a form that I actually sit down and write out before I ever get onto the call. I, write at the very top what I want to gain from the call or what I want to get from the communication. And then I list my questions, because when I get on the call and I get frustrated, things may be forgotten. And I really know I don't want to go through sitting on hold again, because often by the time you've sat on hold for 30 minutes, you're exhausted and frustrated and you don't want to have patience for them. And so I get it all set up. I get ready for myself on there. I have my list of everything that I want to go through. And then I can easily, I have a pen accessible. I can write down. I just prep. I think it's all in the preparation. I often have a glass of water and maybe sometimes even a book. That's what I do when I go to a doctor's office, because that's when I find can be one of the most frustrating places to be. I bring a glass, I make sure I have water, maybe a snack, and my book. And I know things are a little bit different right now with COVID, especially going into a doctor's office if you've had to still go in person for some types of appointments, if you're not able to do Zoom. So there's a whole nother level that can be upsetting and unnerving to you walking in there. Just remember, control what you can. Protect yourself, wear your mask, have things with you. Don't be afraid if someone's sitting too close to move away, or ask them politely to respect your space, and know going in the challenges and be ready for them. So when you do get on these calls, yes, identify yourself, talk about what you need. Make sure you gain the name and position of the person you're talking to. So if you have to refer back later, or is there going to be a call code for this particular call? Because they often record these calls. You hear them say that, know that these will be recorded for training purposes. So it's really important to make sure that A, you know that and are okay with it, and then B, get the identifying number for it, because then you can, if any discrepancy comes up, have it checked. Keep them brief if you can. Have your 3 things that you want to know and get out. And if they're really not hearing what you need and can't respond, you can ask to be transferred to someone who can. You can ask for their manager. With insurance adjusters, you can ask for their boss. That is a valid request if you don't feel you're being heard at that level. You can ask what action will be taken, and or you can request a certain action and get their feedback on that. And then you can also ask for a date, like when will this be resolved? It's not the same with Bell Canada as much. Well, it can be if you're needing technicians to come out to the home, but when you need a response date. So, I need to understand this information. Can I expect that you will get back to me by this date? Or if I need this form filled out by my doctor and it needs to be done, when can I expect that to be back? And let them know you'll be holding them accountable to that date. Be thankful. Thank you for thanking them for their time and their patience. And like I said, yeah, save a record if you can, and don't forget to call back and hold them accountable for, I thought I was going to hear back. I just wanted to let you know it's now such and such a date. I expect to hear something by the end of the day. So, and those are all very valid things that you can do. It's not too much to ask. You're not, being a bother. I've heard a lot of people say that, well, I don't want to bother them, they're busy. No, your needs are important and it is okay to be understood. I'm just going to quickly check question. I see there's been a couple come in. I just want to make sure. Do you tell people on the phone that you have a brain injury? I try not to unless it is really obvious. People are understanding, but I'm embarrassed that it got to the point where I had to explain myself. So, you don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be said, oh, I have a brain injury. It might be, and this will come up in this workplace one as well. It might be just something like, I need you to speak a little slower. I just need some more time to process this cognitively. If you're more comfortable using some of that language, maybe it's about just changing the language, or maybe simply saying, I'm really tired today. I've had a lot I've been working through lately, and I would just like you to slow it down a bit. And I think that's okay too. You don't have to tell everyone your whole story. And if it makes you uncomfortable, find the words that are comfortable to you, because it is all true. I do need more time a lot of days. I do want I do want a little more time to process what you're saying. Give me a moment. Do I understand this? Repeat back what they've said. Those are all okay things. In the workplace, and I don't know how many of you are attempting to return to work or have attempted to return to work and how that's gone for you. This applies to, but really applies to almost anywhere, like a classroom, moving into even like a supermarket situation. There's a lot to be considered in those environments that can really be something you are should be able to advocate for yourself. I know in supermarkets, with some advocacy, we have been able to get, certainly the Autism Society was able to do it, and people with the ABI have been able to, as well, to use the stores that allow, of course, again, COVID hasn't always allowed all of that to continue on, but there are certain hours of the day. And well, with COVID, I do believe the seniors are allowed to go earlier. There are times of the day that the lights in certain supermarkets will be dimmed a little bit because more and more people are starting to understand the lighting is a lot. All the physical movement around you can be upsetting. The way an office environment is laid out can be just overwhelming, or classroom environments. So when you do move into those places, like a conferences, any of those places where there's going to be a lot of challenges for you, the psychological stress of like, do I have to explain myself? I think take your time with it. If it's an environment you're going to be going to repeatedly, it is okay to write the things down that you need and just quietly discuss it with, if you have someone who's in HR, or if it's a smaller company and you talk more directly to your boss. These are all things you can reach out to the people at BIS, because they can provide more tips, and maybe there will be someone that could back you up in that conversation. Those are things that we are willing to support with. Find out, can you have more flexible hours to allow for rest breaks? is there a room that you could go to that's quiet just for that 5-minute, 10-minute break that you know you're going to need throughout the day? Can your desk be moved to a quieter area of whatever room? And can you bring in your own lights? Can you bring in own things to your office area or your workspace that is going to allow you to have a chance to sit and rest? Can music be turned down, right? Not everyone wants the music that loud. And are there things happening with other staff where they don't necessarily understand what you're going through and you don't want to have to explain yourself every time? Can there be some other way of communication developed? Again, I'm just going to check the questions. If I can get, there we go. Okay, so there is that piece of, yeah, I don't want everyone to know my business over and over and over again. Yeah. So, so what to do in those situations? There may be those times where you are stuck and that you may have to just talk about the situation with someone. It's part of your experience and it's not anything to be ashamed of. There is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in all over that are managing all sorts of different mental health issues, physical issues, functional issues. And we are all individuals and we will all have our different individual challenges. And yeah, I know it's not comfortable necessarily to have to share yours. And I'm sorry that that may be part of your experience in certain situations. And I do try to empathize with that. But I think, yeah, the verb, like if you don't want to do it verbally, if there is a way to send an email ahead and if there are ways, maybe we need to get creative. This is what we have an advocacy committee now with BIS that we're starting up. And maybe that's one of those things that we need to sit down and put our heads together at problem solving. Is there a way that there is a particular phone line where you don't need to express yourself to be it? Like, why isn't that something that companies are automatically having and putting together? We're just looking at the court system even right now. If anyone has to go to court and they have ABI or any sort of, are they really accommodated in the way they need to be? So we are working on those pieces of advocacy. And if there is something in particular that's recurring for anyone, please check in with BIST and reach out and maybe it's something that we can take on as a larger group and look to advocate towards together. Debriefing after an experience with someone is also a really good way to gain perspective and understand, okay, how much of it is my anxiety and apprehension? How much is reality? Can I problem solve with this individual to feel better about what happened, to strengthen a response that I'm not happy with? And to review what has happened and then record their suggestions, your feelings. I think it's a really good practice for almost anyone. Like if you're going to meet, hanging out with, if you're nervous about going into a doctor appointment, if you're nervous about going into social gathering, it's really good to have a debrief with someone afterwards and go through what happened and they can help you sort yeah, you know what, that wasn't a good thing, that wasn't right, or you know what, that actually was okay, and I can follow through with that. Sharing experiences. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. It's really, really important to have a group that you can share a thing, have a friend, have other individuals that understand what it is you're experiencing, or at least have some understanding of what you're experiencing. Like I said, everyone's situation is individual. Sorry, I'm just going to come up here to because I do see there's a raised hand. Oh. Okay, So yeah, that's what that's pretty funny, Al, that you're setting up an accessibility phone line for companies. Yeah, that's interesting that, yeah, we both kind of, that came through our minds at the same time. Yeah, so when you're returning to work and bringing up the fact that the lighting is a little bright, uh, I know we've had rooms in our office where it is very true. There is that overhead lighting, those fluorescent type tubes, and they are bright. They're too much. They're overstimulating and they're really unpleasant to work within. And we were told, well, we can't shut off one room. It's a large building. They're all connected, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we finally advocated enough for our clients with the building supervisor. And we said, you know what, we're taking the light bulbs out. And because they don't like that in general. They want to know everything's working. But we, said, sign a thing. We're taking these out. We've brought in our own floor lamps into the area. And so we've been able to control. So I don't know how that would work in a larger office if there were like several of those desks, but I think it's worth a conversation, and I think it's worth problem solving around. Are there then panels, like there's divider panels, can that be arranged and then your particular cubicle lights be taken and a floor lamp? Like I think there are ways to do it. It can start with an email. You can certainly ask for support with the BIS team. Is this something where, I should be seeking even more support if they're not responding to my needs? So hopefully that answers those questions. So yeah, this is why education normalizing your situation, because it is very normal. There is like brain injury and trauma and cognitive processing issues and visual issues post an injury is so widespread, and there's so many people that have had an injury that don't even realize that they've had an injury. And so it is prevalent, and it is about normalizing those situations. And when you start to talk about it, people really start to understand, wow, like there is so much more that we can do about this. Politicize the situation. Talk about how in our world right now, it's not set up for anybody who isn't functioning completely with full vision, full function, sharp minds. It really seems like our world is not, I know, like I'm going to go back to even my leg injury. I was unable to walk for about, a month and a half. I had crutches after that. There are so few doors in the city of Toronto that actually you can open while standing on crutches. And the wheelchair buttons, they don't work consistently. There was so many places that were simply not accessible to me. The number of stairs in so many places. I mean, I got very good at it and I tried to adapt, and because I was on them for a long time, but it really became clear to me how few places are adapted to anyone. The lightings, the noise, we're not a society that is aware or I don't know, willing. I don't know what it is. Like, why is every bar you go into the counter so high? What if I wanted to go in and I'm restricted to a wheelchair? How do I function within that environment without it being uncomfortable? And how do I have conversations with individuals in that environment without feeling like left out of everything? And where it's just those. And so, okay, fine, we're going to have those establishments. Then why don't we have more establishments geared to a quieter environment where socialization can be facilitated in a much more welcoming way to those who aren't able to function in that environment? And I think that is the part of belonging to a group and sharing those stories. And then you can figure out different ways to advocate for yourself. So in taking that further, that to literally being a political thing. I did work for some time at Queen's Park in Toronto. I did a volunteer thing there for my social work group. And so what I found is that there is a lot to be gained by connecting with your local MP and your local MPP, because they do want the members of their constituency to be happy. And when you go to them, it's not even, I find, what cases were most successful going through were not those that were just saying, hey, here's a problem, this needs to be taken care of. But if you can say, hey, there's a problem, and in BC, I know that they did this about it, that really helps that constituency office to digest the information and know what they can maybe do and develop a new bill or policy to cover that issue. And it's not your job to do that research. And a good and responsive MPP office may be able to will step in and do that research. I know, because I was one of those individuals who did that research. So you're consistently having issues with your landlord, and you're being it isn't well set up for you, and there's all kinds of different issues that came in, and I was really surprised at how they will often use their power to speak for you. And don't be afraid to use someone else's power, because that's what you need. When you go with a number of people with the same issue, it really helps, which is why I like that idea of people coming together in groups, so you can share the same concerns and understand and make plans to move forward and voice it in a larger place. Don't just, when you're doing that if you are going to take on some of that online research to see what other people in other countries, like, don't forget to, like I'm saying, don't forget to go to the other country, like check locally, what is it even the neighborhood over there has done to accommodate, or what is someone else done in the province, or what is someone else done in the country, or what is someone else done in another country, because examples and learning from other people's examples are a great way to bring it back to your politicians. And they do want to be heard. And then that's also another thing to also bring forward to this advocacy committee. I know this is happening in this area. Is that something that we could ask for here, and could BIS support that? Do they see a room for that in their mandate moving forward? I'm just checking the questions again to make sure I have caught up. Yeah, I think we're caught up on the questions. And it's going to take a minute to check in the chat as well, in case anyone's voiced something out there. Oh, okay. Too much money to make the cafe or physio clinic. So that's when I think of that going to a local MPP, because that is an interesting question. How do they receive permits, especially if they're working in the area of physio that can't accommodate individuals? And it's my understanding that cafes that is one of the things that they are to do, is make it accessible. So that is something to take to the local MPP. Maybe if it is expensive, then why isn't that community organization or that constituency looking at ways to ask for funding to help small businesses become more compliant with that? I understood there was a certain, and now I'll have to check the information, but there's a certain timeline that places do need to be compliant with accessibility and ramping and all of those other pieces of being a fully accessible place. But also more and more consideration is being given to lighting and noise and scheduling. So the more we push that education out there, I'm hoping that there will be more compliance and more response. The elements of asking for something. So yeah, knowing the facts. And you do want to petition those agents of power. So BIST can't always be that agent of power, but there are other ones. OBIA is the Ontario Brain Injury Association, but there may be in your neighborhood other than your MPP? Who is one of the more powerful companies? Like, what are they doing within their workplace? Who is in running things down at that community center? What is the dynamic of what's happening there? Sometimes it's about asking around, finding out who are those individuals who can make things happen and can listen to a petitioner, can at least listen to what you have to say. It's really can be difficult to remain calm in those situations, but I think part of remaining calm is knowing that what you're asking for is valid and understanding that, yes, there are financial reasons that hold people back from doing it as quickly as they need to, like becoming compliant with accessibility, but it's still needed. Like, the answers are still needed. When is it coming? Is it still a priority? Why isn't there more funding? Could you add your name to our petition to get funding? Because I'm sure many businesses would want support in order to become more compliant, because that just opens their doors to more customers and to more clients coming in. And come prepared to those conversations when you do get to speak to those agents of power. So, you do know your facts, and if you can calmly discuss them. Maybe it's not going to happen tomorrow, but at least you walk out finding that there is a plan in place and that you can go back to that, holding that plan accountable to make it really happen. So yeah, the distance between what you want and what you get is what you do, but it's also about how you do it. And I can, it's easy for me to say, oh, remain calm, you'll get there. And so there is a couple of resources that I did want to go through about remaining calm, because there is a lot of pieces of remaining calm that, like I said, about the core beliefs and the understanding that you are validated, and you are right. Walking into a doctor's office, if we want to get to this, celebratory thing, keep it in perspective and get to that point where we're celebrating that we've actually made it. Walking into a doctor's office, I find in particular, is one of the most challenging things that I have individuals bring forward. And that's when I would again adopt that list of things that you want to know going in. Have on that list any resources that you have heard about through other individuals that are managing similar issues, similar challenges to you. What are they using that works? Why isn't that resource been offered to you by your doctor? What do they know about? And that's a fair question. What do you know about acquired brain injury? Because I want to make sure I'm working with someone that can really help me. And is there somewhere else you can refer me? What resources do you know about acquired brain injury? And if they're not able to answer, then you know that they aren't able to help you in their educated way. And if they're not willing to refer, that's where because lots of us won't know all the answers, but if they're not willing to refer, then that's when it really becomes problematic to you. And I know in my area, if I have a doctor, I'm not allowed to apply for a new doctor, or I'm not allowed to go to a new doctor. But I think at that point you can say to your doctor, I really don't think that we're going to be able to work together and carry on. Is there a way that you can help my moving to a new doctor that does have more up-to-date information? Speak to some of the local, if there's, like, I've even contacted at one point, I didn't know what exactly I could do for my client, and it was a certain type of therapy they wanted. And so I just contacted the hospital, and I'm like, do you know anyone that you have heard of? Has anyone left here with the same issue and found sources? Like, it's just about, it is a constant journey of finding resources that work for you, because there isn't, like I said, a step-by-step path that everyone is going down, and first you go here and then you go here and then you go here and this is where we get to. There's so much happening along the way, and if you don't want to take if the medication is not the answer for you and that's the only thing that you're being offered by your doctor, then it is okay to seek out other answers. And it should be their job to do that with you. But if they're not able to take the time and don't understand the situation, then it is in your best interest to seek those who do. And I'm hoping, again, that is a situation that will change. BIST has, and I know our company has individually gone out and really tried to work with physicians that are in the community and try to raise their awareness of what's happening and what to even look for when someone has a brain injury or a stroke. What are some of the challenges? And they don't, some are receptive and some are not. They do allow us to drop literature there, but it sometimes it's, we just have to keep that message going and keep talking about it and keep re-energizing that pathway forward through seminars and communication and discussions and reaching out to one another to make that happen. I'm just checking our questions again to make sure we're catching that, everyone's comments, so that we can what if the required accommodations were not given during a return to work process and then after a second failed attempt seems no longer able to work? Achieve inability to process information being delivered. To make the workplace, okay, yeah, that's a tough one when you start to go back to work and I don't know if I can ask Cheryl, would there have been enough accommodations to make it work if they had been properly voiced and properly managed? Because that, is it, too late to turn that around and come back at it and say, okay, you know what, this is my written request, and in it, these are the things that would make my place of employment work. I would like to meet with you. I would like to sit down and go through what ones could potentially be implemented, and see if, and then at that point, it's making that decision. Can I return to work? Can I then, if I can't return to work, is there a way that I can work with my doctor to get, there are some programs where you can get some funding for retraining when there's been a diagnosed injury. And are you going to be eligible for that? If it is your workplace that you really want to come back to, is there someone there that can, someone of senior management that you do have some relationship with that you can work with to try and make that work? Oh, okay. So there's another situation that I think, and when people say it's too late now, perhaps the job in itself is too late, but I don't think it's too late ever to write, to sit down if you need help to write that out, or if you want to give examples of how other places have made it work, and just whether that will make you personally feel a little bit better about the situation. Okay, you know what, this happened, and I had a difficult time communicating that based on what was happening in my world at the time. But go through what could have been accommodated on that side. Because again, like I said, there's so many individuals going through this. You are not going to be the first or last person that has had this happen to them in the workplace, and probably even in that workplace, right? It is going to come up again. I had a young man, and the only reason he was able to maintain success, to be successful within his job, was because his boss was incredible with him. He wasn't showing up for shifts. He just was like at the last minute. And, in reality, it looks, or, their perception is that this person is showing up late or not at all. They are like asking to leave early. They are nervous and unsettled here. They obviously, they just have to go. No, she was like fabulous, with a little bit of conversation around it. He did go in and try to have a conversation, she accommodated shorter hours until he could work into a system of making it work for him. And she went even above and beyond that. Like when he did manage an early morning shift at 7 and got there on time, and it was amazing. Like, he gets a little gift card. I mean, that was, and now he's one of the best workers there and they love him. And, he's the one getting the shifts. So it's just a matter of people understanding and being patient and knowing that, what, I like that term, like everyone's a masterpiece, and it takes all different levels and timing and situations on getting them there. There's another comment here I just wanted to go through. An issue I do find as a long-time sufferer is that during times when my condition deteriorates, I'm not able to articulate the issues I'm having. Yeah, exactly. I am trying to keep a list of symptoms and as reference. That's perfect. Yeah, keep that list. I know in one workplace, there was a lot of this individual I knew had a lot of mental health issues. And he actually had a list that said, if you see this or this or this is what may be happening. Can you suggest this to me? Like it was really detailed, and it was really what made their situation work. And again, I know not every workplace is going to be as accommodating, but the more I find there is conversation and awareness raised and understanding, and they see that, they understand that this is not you not trying. This is you having a really difficult day and wanting to try. And these little creative ways to communicate that, like it all comes back to that communication. And with the communication, again, that number one thing, educate. We are the experts. Maybe this is our role now. Like I'm just always trying to reframe these experiences of what has happened to us. Are we here because we are the people that can help educate, and how we can help learn, teach and learn to advocate better for ourselves in this world that is not set up for individuals who have challenges. I'm just going to pop to Els. If we're able to make accommodations and paid programs for maternity leave, yeah, then why can't we make accommodations for people with a disability? Yeah, it is very true. It is discrimination. And, I look at all of my education at both York University, and then I went to Dalhousie because they had really wonderful online programs, and that's what worked for me rather than making the long travel. We spent a lot of time in looking at the medical model, and in general, our medical model is set up that doctors are the experts. There's very little time given for hearing what a client has to say, and enter in any, the part of being a female or the part of being someone of a different color than white, enter in any extra different ability of any individual. And it just seems like you're heard less and less and less and less. And that is going to be an ongoing battle in general in this world to make that situation end. But the medical model as well, it's the way it's been set up. And so there's a lot of talk on the Ontario health teams right now. And I'm sitting on one of the Ontario health teams, and I said, I really want the individuals at BIST and brought into these conversations, because when we're redesigning, and I hope there is true redesigning, and again, our friend COVID has slowed that process down. If they're looking at better ways that individuals can be served in the community, they need to consider these individuals in the community, different languages, all of those pieces. Like imagine, I know we're all managing like post-injury, people are managing so much, and then to have to manage it in a different language is just more difficult and beyond comprehension for me, and how strong people need to be to manage those pieces. Okay, so I think I'm just going to check the chat to make sure there's no more. So yeah, Lori offered it when she goes to her doctor's appointments. She brings someone to support you. That's brilliant. I think it's about understanding, yeah, is there anyone else that can help bring resiliency to your request and determination to your request to be heard, someone who can help you be entertained, frankly, and distract you when you're sitting there waiting, and then to bounce things off of and add support to what you're having to say and yeah, recalling things is a big thing. Some doctors may allow you to have your phone running to record those responses. One of the things on my sheet, that's why I like to have that sheet of paper. I've even, before going to a doctor's appointment, helped individuals compose an email or a fax that goes into the doctor's office first. I'm coming in, date and time. This is, what I'm managing. This is what I'm going to need the answers for. It gives them a heads up. You have that same copy and you can write down the responses to that. No guarantee they're going to get it, read it, think about it, but we're trying to advocate for ourselves and try to do everything we can to make sure we're heard, and that at least we can walk out of there confident and calm, knowing, we're doing our job. And if they haven't been able to respond, then those are the times where you're saying, I really need more. I need to understand, could I be referred, and push for those. Often you'll talk to someone and they know of a fabulous doctor. Can you please refer me to that therapist or this doctor? I often bring, because you forget what they're having to say. Yeah. How do we get included in policy making? So that's where we come back to standing together, having a voice together, finding examples in other areas, and battle through it together. There are no easy answers, and I apologize that I don't have the answers to everything either. I only know the systems that have started working. It was really helpful for me to get to know what goes on at Queen's Park, to understand that process. And now, what is involved in actually having a policy developed and change made. Okay, I haven't even checked the time to see where we are. We're just at 7:04. I don't have a lot more in my, I was so hoping this would be live and we could open it up to an open discussion because it's so helpful. That is what I have tended to do with groups. And there's some really interesting things that come out that we can share and problem solve. For examples, I don't know if anyone has a quick, situation that they have recently gone through, and there were suggestions that we could pop one up and go through and try to work through it. I really like, some of the things that have been highlighted here is that long time, and that's great, that suggestion of writing things down and communicating when you can't always anticipate how you're going to be, but these are the things that could help when you see certain symptoms come on. That's a really incredible one. I find that communication in social groups is one that really comes up a lot. And they're like, you know what, I want to have a social group again. I want to be respected within my family group. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's a lot of lack of education. People don't really get it. So we had within one family, we had some really interesting exercises that we did to help the family members understand what it was like to have really an oversensitivity to light. And so little things like, there was we took out the light bulbs and changed them all to extremely bright, right, in this one room. And it was like, this is what it's like for this individual walking into a room. There's that they are dealing with. And then having a headphone on, like just a low noise, but headphones that are a distracting noise. And so just to give that example of, look, like when I'm in a room and I'm trying to focus on what you're saying and you can barely get it because there's all this distraction going on in terms of noise coming in from other places. This is what it's like for me trying to hold a conversation with you. Helping them to understand that with brain, once someone's constantly managing fatigue and recovery, like when someone breaks a leg, you can see the bone heal, you can see the bruising, you can understand that it's going to take a long time. The brain is a really a complex organ that we don't understand how long it takes to heal, and the fact that there's like neural networks disrupted, which then leads to more disruption of other neural networks. There's so much of that education that's missing for our families, so they don't understand why. We did the same things today. He did them yesterday and was fine, and now today he's snapping at us, he's angry, he's tired, he's unmotivated, he's lazy. Oh, that is a term that we spent a lot of time undoing in some families, saying like there's just not room. We want to start talking about different language so that we can all start understanding this situation. Language is really key to changing the way people think, even when they're talking about it. So no, there is not laziness. That is not the issue here. What is happening is fatigue. What is happening is being overwhelmed. What it is when there's a lack of motivation. No, go on without me. That's not about laziness. That's about different states of arousal. So educating what's happening in the human brain. And that's not just helpful for you as the individual who's been injured. That's really helpful for individuals to understand that don't have a brain injury, because what we're finding is long term, anyone who's managing a lot of stress, there is an over accelerated amount of activity happening in that hippocampus area, which is makes it more difficult for you to cognitively think through things. So everything's in that fight or flight mode, I guess is the only way to describe it. And so that's why I did want to bring in maybe one of the things that we can try before the end of our session is a little bit of education around, if you guys are open to it, hopefully. There's a little bit of, and I know people talk about breathing, and they talk about managing like your breath. And a lot of the time I didn't really get necessarily all what that meant. But I think what I have learned with this feedback unit, it's called an M-wave system. It really shows how a person is when they're in that state of hyperactive fight or flight state. There is this agitated we don't breathe in the same way. We don't breathe as deeply. There's not as much difference between, like when we breathe in, it tends to accelerate our heart rate. And then when we breathe out, it automatically lowers. When you've been carrying a lot of stress, when you're in an agitated state, there's very little difference between your speed coming in, sorry, I just hit the computer, your speed coming in or your speed going out. And it's because you don't get into that more relaxed state. You're always in that raised state. You're up here, you're a little bit higher up all the time, which it doesn't leave you a lot of patience for advocating for yourself. It puts you in a state of just response. And it's really hard to be able to logically step back and navigate your way through advocacy when is so needed. So what I have been practicing a little bit with the M-wave. I have seen it doesn't change what's going wrong in the world. It just allows you to gain a little bit more energy to navigate it from a calm place and demonstrate your expertise to be able to advocate better for yourself. So it's just another tool. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Breathing is just another tool. It's not going to solve all the problems, and it's not going to make everything okay. It does give your body a little chance to take it back, step back, and advocate a little bit more. So I'm just gonna stop sharing and pop up to my other screen where it talks about one method that people can use. There it is. So they talk about it being like a heart lock-in technique, and why and what is it that's happening, because we're trying to get rid of that feeling of frustration and breathe it out. And on our way back in, we're thinking about it coming into the heart. So we're letting go some of that. Or for everyone, like I said, as an individual, thinking about the heart, because it has a feedback system. Now we're understanding more for the rest of the body and the brain, which is actually neurologically healing. If that heart is more, has that variability and does actually monitor itself through that back up and down process. So I talk about breathing through the heart. If you have an area that you feel specifically tense and tight for you, and that's where you want to breathe out some of that anxiety and anger or frustration or fatigue and get rid of it. It's just what I have been finding really helpful on the way back in is to breathe in a mantra. So if I'm in a doctor's office and I'm getting really frustrated with what's happening around me, that's where a time where I've used it in the past. It's like out and then back in. I am strong. I can do this, right? It's just those little things coming in and out. And then some people can gain a peace of mind with thinking about the things that bring them joy and happiness, and then you're kind of popping that feeling of joy and happiness out to someone, and then it's giving, because there's a lot to be said about feeling better with giving to others. So, one of my favorite images is of I had a little baby boy, and he's got this wild blonde hair, shines in the wind. And that's one of my favorite images. Or chipmunks. Chipmunks are a constant state of joy for me. So they're just so fat. You don't want them in your house, but they're so sweet outside, right? Like they're just those little pieces of joy that can put a smile on your face. And breathing that in, right? And I don't know if you just want to take a couple of minutes right now. We have enough time. It's 7:14. Even if we take 5 minutes, and all of these things that we're talking about are kind of making me anxious. Just thinking about like trying to talk to doctors can make me crazy sometimes, like just the frustration in it. So you can, when you practice it, it comes easier to do in those situations where you are anxious. So this is just a little, you can write some of those feelings and attitudes down that you can use. And writing them down just helps you remember them when you need them. Seeing them written down helps you practice them. The more we practice them and we start to like think about our body being in that calmer place, it actually does happen. They're showing that there is neurological change based on that practice and belief. And it does help us advocate for ourselves better and work from a place of calm. And we feel better. So if nothing else, we're advocating for ourselves by, giving ourselves a better chance to feel healthier and go through it. And you can keep a log, and it really helps you. So if anyone wanted this resource, you're more than welcome to have it. But even if we take, I'm just going to put this on for we'll just do a short one, 3 minutes, because I know not everyone wants to do breathing practice, but if you can just take 3 minutes and let's just try that. Try like checking through your body, seeing where it's tight, seeing where it's anxious, or just feeling around your heart. I do feel it often tight with my heart. So that is the area that as I breathe out, kind of go and try to relax it. And when I'm breathing in, I am strong. I belong. So the trick is to fill that space of frustration and doubt, pain, try to fill it with, those silly chipmunks, or that beautiful baby face, or that sunny day that I know I'm going to have next week with my friends. Like, whatever you can use as your personal piece of joy. And when you do breathe in, give yourself a little bit of time in that moment before breathing out the stuff that you don't want in there. And I do tend to feel that experience of, as I'm breathing in the mantra or that picture and feeling that area, I do, and then breathing out what isn't helping me get to where I want to be. I do notice a more sense of calm that comes in, and they are finding in individuals who, it's almost like an EEG. It's like one of those up and down lines. They're finding with individuals who don't have a lot of variation between the highs and the lows, it is very closely associated with health issues that come from constantly being in that state of agitation and upset. So, this is where I know advocacy, it has so many different, like, what is advocacy? There's so many different avenues that you can go down, and we've talked a lot about them, but I did want to end with the final one being advocate for yourself with yourself. Allow yourself to have those moments of building strength and calm and health building exercises, because that's what's going to keep you determined. That's what's going to give you the energy to stay determined and keep moving forward. Yeah, so that really is what I wanted to bring to you tonight. And I don't want anyone to go away feeling as though not that what they wanted to address wasn't heard, or if there was any questions or any thoughts or any concerns that you wanted to raise now, or if you wanted to find out about getting these resources, any of the resources I have. I have a couple of different breathing things. The unit is called an M wave. It's something you can look up. Sorry, I'm just going to go back into sharing the final screen. I don't know. Does anyone have anything else they want to ask about or find out about those? I guess maybe we can post them. They can come out after. We can probably find those resources like through an email out. Just checking the chat. Oh, there was one last chat I didn't pick up. Wow, so there's a lot of stuff going on, like right brain, left brain. Right. Memory is really, you know what, I don't know if we're covering memory in this concussion series. And it is, a memory is also affected a lot by anxiety and the stress and dealing with this secondary trauma. It's not just the trauma of the injury happening, but then it's all the trauma of actually trying to move forward and be well and not being heard. So yeah, you know what? I think you'll find as you are able to relax into like breathing methods and self-care methods, your memory can improve. There are lots of online cognitive things that you can do. There are little, and I know that we do have someone coming in to speak more around tips around on that. And so that might be a good session for you to check in on in terms of like just cognitive. I think memory is covered in that cognitive building. And if not, that OT will definitely know where to find them. So yeah. Oh, okay. So okay, advocating for myself on and building self-confidence. That is a really big area of interest and focus for me as well, Cheryl. So I've been doing a lot of work with individuals and perception building, because I said, it would be so easy if there was like a self-esteem tank you could just pull up and, fill up and move off, right? That would be great. But I think it is a lot of going back to knowing that you are the expert, because only you know your experiences and you're not making them up. And while you may not understand why it's happening all the time, they're definitely real. So that is where you start. This is real. So, and I know that Elle and I'm in a ABI group, and she was saying how she's done so much research, and she's part of this group tonight, so much research. And she's like, why do I have to find out these things? That's making her even more of the expert, right? Like it's advocating for yourself from that place of expert and knowledge is very empowering, and having people like a group like this to help build that is the way to go. So Cheryl, feel free to like reach out, and we can send on some things on perception building. And I don't know if you know about cognitive behavior therapy, but that's a really nice way to break down some of those beliefs that you're not the expert or you're not deserved of certain things. Because yeah, sometimes it's just our perception of what's happening that's not based on the reality of the situation, but it's just the outcomes. We repeat outcomes when we go into it feeling a certain way. I know it's hard to explain. It sounds a bit jumbled, but given more time, yeah, we could go through it. Okay. Al, that's great. I think yeah, you're right. Build confidence in advocating. Yeah, you really get validated, I think, within those meetings and meeting with other people. And you go, yeah, you can take on that persona of, yeah, we do know what we're talking about. We do know what is happening here. There is always something more to advocate about. So that's why, again, I want to say advocate for yourself with yourself first. Say, yes, I am going to make progress. This is going to happen. There are systems and people and situations that need to be addressed. And I'm going to make sure I maintain my energy and able to do that. And it's not all my job alone. And I can rely on the knowledge of others to help me in my situation too. I think we just need to keep sharing and believing, because it is coming. There are changes coming. They will, that's what we do. We evolve, we change as humans, and sometimes it's slower and sometimes we move faster. And working together is the way to make it move forward faster. Okay, so are we at the end of we're just about at the end of our time. We just have 5 minutes. Is there any last, let me check and make sure there hasn't been any other comments up here. And if there's any specific, I think if there's any specific like questions like that memory thing, I'll take that forward to the next speaker and say, if you haven't plugged in some of that, could you plug in some stuff around memory? Oh, okay. I found that the recording a meeting or conversation to be helpful with information processing. Yeah, you know what? It's important to make the other person aware that you have taped it. You can tell them that it's for your intent only. I don't know if they would be more comfortable recording it in a different way then, if they're totally fine with you recording it just so you remember the information. I just think informing them is the way to go, Cheryl. It's respectful, and I think if it was me, I would want someone just to tell me. I don't have any issue with it typically. I don't feel like I ever say anything that I would want be challenged on later, but I would just like to know, so that Okay. Oh, we have one more in the chat. Yeah, I can't answer that as to when it will be available. Yeah, but I do believe it will be for either showing on the website later or whether, yeah. I can ask Miri or Melissa about that, getting access to this recording. I can just write that down, or I won't remember for myself to check in on how these will be. I don't know if they're going to compile all of them and offer it out that way, or whether, yeah, you can check in again and it'll be online in a certain area. But I will definitely check with them, and I know you'll probably get a follow-up email. Session recording. Okay, so where are we? We're at 7:30, I guess, 7:27. And I guess that's our closeout. I really miss not having like an interaction with people. It's kind of hard to talk to empty air. So hopefully this has been okay and helpful in some ways. The sheer fact that you're all here tonight is hopeful from my perspective, because it's like really showing that people are interested to advocate for themselves and move forward. So, hopefully be kind to yourselves around that and recognize you are doing everything that you can. Okay. Everyone have a good night, and thank you for your time and coming here.